Elite Card Grading ECG. For those of you who don't remember, Ryan did a video on this guy. He was dipping, not dipping cards like your favorite whatnot breakers, but he was dipping as in, like the tobacco chew, and he was spitting it out in a bottle, which look, I used to occasionally enjoy a little dip here and then when I was in college. Okay. Very rarely, but I've had a little dip in my mouth before. It's not the worst thing. But it was clear from the beginning that this company was set to fail, just like every 3-acronym grading company that's not named PSA, SGC, even BGS has really slept. I mean, we used to see BGS have essentially a leading position when it came to grading modern cards. That company is nowhere to be seen at this point, basically. And maybe you have CSG. That's it. But I honestly, as I sit here today, I have no idea why anybody would send their cards to anybody but PSA. Like, for real. Okay. The pricing is about the same. The turnaround times are about the same. I understand when a lot of people got into this hobby after Jeff Wilson's second PPP loan cleared, and he was pumping out the videos and he was telling you about this grading company or that grading company, and everybody was worried about the backlog and those types of things. And I understand PSA has a large upcharge. So sure, if you have a $10,000 card, $20,000, $50,000, $90,000 card, I understand that maybe now there's a decision to be made. But for the vast majority of cards in existence, I literally have no idea why anybody would grade with anybody other than PSA. The price is the same. The turnaround time is the same. The reputation is better. And the value of that slab that it adds is greater than all the other grading companies, maybe combined. That's where we sit today. It hasn't always been this case. This is our 15th year doing content. It hasn't always been the case, but I just don't see a reason why anybody would grade with an ECG, let alone really anybody else. There's no excuse. There are excuses. I can understand an argument for SGC, can understand the argument for BGS, can understand an argument. What's the other one? CSG. Okay, I get it. You can make that argument. I'm not going to disagree with you. But when we start talking about tag grading, we start talking about ECG, we start talking about anybody else. HGA. You might as well just light your money on fire. Just light the cards on fire and your money at the same time on fire. I don't understand it. Ryan, do you have any comments on ECG? Probably the most telegraphed and easy to predict bankruptcy in the history of the hobby.
Well, a lot of these grading companies, HGA, ECG, they came along when BGS was shut down, when PSA was shut down, and the backlog was huge, and it was a year to get your card back. So you could see why it would be appealing. You go, you meet these guys at a show, and hey, instead of waiting a year to get your card back from one of the companies you named, you could get it back in 2 weeks for $20 or whatever they were charging at the time. So you could see there was a little moment in time where these companies had relevancy. And then suddenly, once PSA basically opened back up, pushed the price down, you can see the price of grading has consistently kind of shot down. It basically will eliminate these guys altogether. I imagine HGA is probably, the next one, and probably anybody else who's started, great, these kind of third-rate companies. So I could see you are a brand new collector. You don't know anything. You don't know the hierarchy of grading. You go to a card show, and these guys could talk you into sending 20 cards. Okay. And so what happened was if you can't read that letter, essentially ECG went out of business. They still had orders, much like our guy Richard over, at the consignment shop. He still had collector cards. They still had orders they needed to fulfill. So they needed to return those cards. And I think we're in the process of ECG returning those cards along with that letter. Now, not everybody has gotten their cards yet. And some people are still, in limbo. Are they going to get their cards or not from ECG? So it's something to stay on top of, but this company will be no longer. And like you said, we're literally talking about there's really one clear choice when you're grading. There are obviously some other options that you could talk me into. But I think those other 3 grading companies are severely going to have to drop their price to probably under $10 at some point to really compete with PSA. If PSA kind of reaches capacity and is able to grade cards in a 30-day time frame or whatever it is for $20 or whatever kind of the magic number is. So again, the least obvious thing in the world happened here. One of these 5th, 6th tier grading companies went out of business. I imagine we're going to see more of these into the future, as the year goes on, possibly HGA and some of the other ones. So just another hobby casualty, and just another one bites the dust.